Have you ever heard of the legend of Captain Cairo? It's a story most fitness people would not like you to know about. You see, back in the day when Dark CC started training and working on his mobility, he could barely touch his knees. He was one of the stiffest people that ever lived on this planet. But through sheer will and the use of the dark force of stretch, he became one of the most limber and mobile people in the entire gym he worked out in. And the people in the fitness industry did not like that at all, because now he wasn't just strong and shredded and handsome, but now he was also very flexible, and it made them feel bad because they could barely scratch their own if they wanted to. Now, usually I'm not someone who would share trade secrets, especially these kinds of secrets, but today I will make an exception just for you because you are my favorite person. I'm talking to you directly, and I would like you to advance your hip mobility and general mobility the way I did. So today you and I will go through a handful of advanced hip mobility techniques that I used and that I recommend to most of my clients to use when it comes to advancing your mobility, not just quickly, but in a sustainable way. And we're gonna start out with the easiest exercises first and build some intensity over time. So if you're ready, let's get started right away. Starting with exercise number 1, we want to sit on any sort of elevation. It doesn't have to be high. In fact, it is better if it is a low one. However, if you can't replicate that, it's no problem if you're sitting a little bit higher. All we want to do is extend our upper body, and we just want to do some internal rotations in our hip joint. Now, if you can bring your knee all the way to the ground, that would be amazing. If you can't, however, no problem. This is exactly why we're training, because we want to increase our range of motion over time. And the only way we can do that is through practice. Now, this exercise is one of the easiest and most effective ones that I know, because you can take your leg through a whole range of motion, an entire internal, and if you want to, external rotation by moving your body a little bit further forward and giving yourself more space sideways. Part 1 of exercise number 1, internal rotation while sitting down, and then moving to level 2 of this exercise. Bring your butt forward just slightly, move sideways, and now we can go with the right leg to the middle and to the outside. We want to touch our knee down, and then we're gonna switch. Internal rotation, left leg, external rotation, left leg. And the good thing about this is, and that goes for all the exercises we're going to be doing today, we are always connecting our hips, our knees, and our ankles, because they always work together, and having mobility in all three is essential to advance in what we're going to be doing today. For the more advanced people among you, you can do the same thing while in a deep squat position. I didn't start with that one because getting into a deep squat position is already a pretty much advanced mobility exercise or stance. So if you can't do that, it is absolutely okay to just sit down and do it like that. If you, however, can get into a deep squat, we're going to do the same thing, internal rotation on both sides, and then we're going to combine internal and external rotation together. Now, if you do not have enough core strength to sit up like so, you can use your hands to compensate just a little bit. However, if you can, I would recommend keeping your hands behind your head and going for that added hip flexor and abdominal strength that you're going to build through this movement pattern. Which brings us to the next exercise, and the first one where we're actually going to combine a lot of strength with a little bit of mobility. If you've ever heard about the reverse tabletop position, you can start out like so. Extend your legs, point your fingers away from your body. Now you're going to push your glutes towards your feet, and from here, hoppala, you're going to push your hips upward all the way. Now, most of you are not going to feel any sort of stretch. However, holding this position for longer periods of time requires a lot of strength in your posterior chain, especially in your glutes, your spinal erectors, and your biceps femoris, or the back side of your legs, meaning all the muscles that you require to move your hips in the posterior chain are included in this single exercise. You can either hold statically like so, you want to go for full range of motion by actively pushing upward, or you can work dynamically. Push forward and up. And reverse the movement. It is totally up to you which one of these, or if you do a combination of both. Okay, you're ready for the next exercise, and this one is going to be a little bit more advanced, but we're going to have 3 different levels just so you can check at what level of mobility you are and flexibility you are, and just so you have a little bit of a point you can orient yourself by. We're going to start out in an open position, feet pointing outward, and we're going to go through an entire cossack squat movement. Now, for people with lower mobility, we're just going to switch from the left side to the right side, extending one leg and externally rotating the hip in the other leg. And the more range of motion you have, the more we're going to increase the movement length by going deeper and deeper. Now, most people would think that that is the end of the cossack squat. If you get into a deep squat position on one side, you're basically there already. But these people are wrong, because we have much more levels than these. We can go all the way down, bring our knee and our entire leg into contact with the ground, which is gonna require insanely more mobility than just standing here. And we can even go further to include more of a hip stretch on this side by turning our upper body and pushing our hip away. So now we have, let's go through the motions again. You start here, level number 1. You increase your range of motion. You can go down all the way. Of course, your heel is going to raise a little bit. If you have more control over your abdominals, you can sit down like so. Then we're going to go to the next level, full contact with both legs. And then we're going to move on to the next level. Level number 4 is always a bonus. Back here and push your hip away. You're going to have a nice stretch in your hip flexors, your quadriceps, your lower abdominals, and the insertions in your knee, especially because of the external rotation in the knee on this side. And now we're going to switch it up. Left side, right side, left side and push, right side and push, and we're getting into really advanced territory here, so you can just use your arms to compensate a little bit, or even take off the entire load so you have less of an endurance and strength-based hip mobility work and more of a total flexibility work where you can focus on just stretching. That's totally up to you. And I didn't add the cossack squat for shits and giggles. I added it because it is the base, the building block, the foundation of most of the mobility work that we do. And if you cannot get into that position, then you better start now, because you're gonna need it, especially if you wanna go into more advanced mobility patterns, animal movement patterns, primal training, or whatever it is that you feel like you wanna be working on. And of course I mentioned this because the next exercise is going to be an animal or a primal pattern, and that is going to be the lizard walk or the lizard crawl. Crawling exercises in general are very good for our hips because we are staying very low to the ground. But when it comes to the lizard, there are a couple of extra benefits that we have. For one, it is very strength dominant and it is very coordination dominant, meaning you need to have a lot of control over your entire body to do this pattern. Now, as you can see, we're moving asymmetrically, meaning the left hand moves with the right foot and the right hand moves with the left foot. So we're always working asymmetrically. Then we have full rotation in our lumbar spine, opening our hip and staying very close to the ground and rotating fully when moving forward. This gives us a lot of range of motion in our hips with the included benefit of insane core activation, which requires a lot of stability and a lot of endurance as well. So this workout, especially if you move forward and backward and play around with it a little bit, is going to be insanely effective to add to your repertoire, and I wouldn't scoff at it. While we're at the topic of strength exercises for our hip flexors, now we can isolate the hip flexor and work single-sided. You're gonna start out with a tiny elevation, increased elevation, and you can go as high as you feel like is necessary. However, we're gonna start out in a semi-Turkish seated position, I think, and we're gonna do elevations with our extended leg and turn. Now, if you are lacking once more the strength in your abdominals, you can compensate just a little bit, bring your hand to the ground and switch it up. You can take your time with this exercise, work slowly, or you can work explosively, moving through the motions and repeating a couple of repetitions. And one repetition is forward through all of them and backwards through all of them. And then we can switch it up. Other side. Pull, 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 and repeat. Over time, one hand goes away, and over time, the next hand goes away, and repeat. Which moves us to our last and by no means least exercise. This is going to be an absolute doozy. We're going to start out in a sitting position, and you've seen the pistol squat before, but that's not what we want. We want the in-between, the more important part that is more hip dominant in this exercise. We're going to pull one leg in and switch from the total seated position into a pistol squat. Now you can do the extra work and go for more quadriceps inclusion, sit back down again and repeat the whole process, or you can focus on your hips alone and just do what I'm doing. So we're gonna pull in, already a slight flexion of our hip flexors, and from here using our abdominals and our hips to bring us up from the ground and sit back down again. Extend, pull in, sit up, sit back down, and repeat this as often as is necessary. There you go. Sit up, sit back down, extend, sit up, sit back down, extend. Maybe in between, add a pistol squat. Maybe go for a hamstring stretch or go into a dragonfly or whatever, and then back into our exercise again, just so you don't get bored in between. Now, these are by all means not the only hip mobility exercises, but you already have a pretty good routine with those. If you want to follow along, there are multiple on this channel. You can go check them out. Or if you want more exercises, more advanced exercises, less advanced exercises, check out the other videos that go into more of a hip mobility workout routine, be it if you want to follow along or if you want to build up more exercises that you can use whenever you feel like. Sadly, I'm all out of time. However, if you like the video and subscribe. Check out other videos on this channel because that's how the algorithm works. And I'll see you all tomorrow because we have new videos every single day on this channel. Captain Cairo, peace out.